When this inner-city suburb of Auckland was first settled in the 1880s, it had the unappealing, if appropriately descriptive name of Cabbage Tree Swamp Road. In an early attempt at gentrification, local settlers petitioned to have the name changed to something more regal, and Kingsland it became. These days, Kingsland is home to 4,500 people, and around a third of them were born overseas. Kingsland has always had for me a kind of understated charm. It's one of the oldest suburbs of the city, but unlike some of its upmarket cousins, it doesn't have the grand villas and the broad avenues. But it's close to town, it's got a wide array of housing mix, and it's got some of the best public transport in Auckland. And although the suburb is becoming more affluent, it still has an eclectic and colourful community that welcomes diversity. In this episode of Neighbourhood, we'll enjoy some traditional Samoan hospitality.
So I'm making a chop suey, which is like a really staple Samoan food. Every good Samoan girl should know how to make a good chop suey.
Share the magical childhood memories that have shaped a Dutch woman's career.
I've done certain corporate gigs and I'm painting for like 3-4 hours on this performer, and they do their little performance of 4 or 5 minutes. And then it's kind of like, oh, you know, I've done all this work for that, you know, but hey, that's kind of how it goes.
Discover the challenges that young, ethnically diverse actors face in finding roles equal to their talents.
You can't just be an actor and wait for the phone to ring, you know. You've got to consider, you know, possibly creating your own work or telling your own stories, regardless of where you come from.
And meet a local DJ whose love of music has helped her put down roots in her adopted homeland.
Oh my God, listening to this song just makes me feel like I'm a teenager again, and it just makes me blush and remember my first crush.
I'm Nandor Tansosh, and this is my neighbourhood. I was a Member of Parliament for the Green Party of Aotearoa for almost 9 years. As far as I know, I was the world's only Rastafari MP. Being Rasta is a crucial part of my cultural identity, just as my ethnicity is. My mother is Cape-coloured from the southern tip of Africa, so my background is Khoi, San, German, Dutch, possibly some Malay. I'm not quite sure everything that's in there. My father is Magyar, Hungarian for English speakers. He had to leave his homeland at the end of 1956 after the uprising as a refugee. I've always been proud of my father for his history as a freedom fighter. I suppose my family background gives me a real appreciation that both left and right politics can lead to tyranny if taken to the extreme, whether it's the Communist Party of Hungary or the fascist South African National Party. But I think it's also given me an understanding that ordinary people can make a real difference, can create positive change in the world. Here in Kingsland, a young Cambodian woman is making positive change for herself and others in her chosen profession by making new opportunities.
Hi, Graham.
Yeah, sorry, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Busy, as ever.
Oh, good. Would you say there's any work for me going at the moment, or...?
There's always possibilities, but there's nothing specifically with your name written on it. This year is not proving to be a good year for jobs for people, for anybody, really.
My name is Sarita So, and I'm Cambodian. Although I was born in New Zealand, but my parents came here to New Zealand in the 1980s. I I grew up in Wellington, so I went to university and did theatre and English lit there first. And then after that, I went to Toi Whakaari New Zealand Drama School. So that's about 6 years of study to be an actor, and so currently trying to be an actor.
Challenges for Sarita are probably that most people who are working in this business don't really deal a lot with other nationalities, other ethnicities, so they don't automatically think of somebody like her as being part of the fabric of the society that they're showing on screen. So, and it's a frustration too that when there are specifically Asian roles, they're usually for males. And everybody wants to have a bad drug runner or a bad criminal or something, and nobody's actually worked out that there's just as many bad Asian females as there are males. That's right.
I mean, even when we were in drama school, they were always like, 2% of you guys are going to be working at the end of this. And at the time, it's like terrifying, but you sort of hope that maybe you're going to be that part of that 2%. But, that's why it was also drilled into us that you can't just be an actor and wait for the phone to ring, You've got to consider, possibly creating your own work or telling your own stories, regardless of where you come from. So in the meantime, I've also started trying to write a play. It's called Ningni's Legacy, and it's about a family that have come over to New Zealand after the genocide, arriving in the 1980s, as a lot of refugees did then, and then their new lives whilst carrying the ghosts that haunt them. Tapak is a space that is just down the road from where I live, and my flatmate works here, so they've been kind enough to lend us this space to do a bit of a read-through rehearsal, and it's been awesome. I'll be playing a 40-year-old woman who speaks very little English, and that's the really stupid, ironic thing about it, is that, I always go for these roles when I'm going for auditions, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't speak English again, And I'm like, we can speak English now. We've been here for a while, and yet my first play that I'm writing, the characters, all of them don't speak English very well. Okay, so you actually just came in a little bit too early. So just let them have that moment, because it's the first time, I guess, that she's touched her husband in 20 years, okay? Really? So at this stage, the casting is really hard because it's essentially a Cambodian family that are the main focus, but I'm probably the only Cambodian actor that I know.
Come, we gotta go, say we're not striking.
What they say all the time, speak so fast, I never know. They still allow us to work.
I guess I'm trying to look for, even Cambodian musicians, graphic designers, just trying to, I guess, get as much of the community in as possible. So, because I'd be basically opening the theatre experience to another audience, really, because not much of the Cambodian community do go to theatre, and this is a story essentially about them. I would hope the play is a massive success, but after that, I would like to tackle something a bit more contemporary, and maybe I'd still like to carry on with the writing, because you've got to do something in the meantime whilst you're waiting for the phone to ring, because essentially I still feel like I'm using my brain or using whatever I trained for a reason.
My parents met in England and got married, and my brother and I were born there. In the mid-70s, along with a lot of other people in Britain, my parents decided they wanted to get out of the place, and we had a big family discussion about where we would go. I feel really blessed that we decided to come to Aotearoa. When I was 14, I went to live with my grandparents for a year in Hungary. It was a part of the communist bloc at that time, of course, and I could see how the government maintained a rigorous control over information as a way of maintaining power. I became very interested in the role of the independent media as a way of creating political change. And for a long time, I really wanted to be a journalist. In fact, I even studied journalism. What that showed me is how little independent media there actually is, and how few actual journalists. It was around then I decided I'd rather make the news than write about it. There's a Dutch woman working locally who's taken her childhood memories and forged a career turning fantasy into reality.
I specialise in extravagant makeup and body art, painting people. That's what I do, yeah. Transforming them into different kind of creatures. I'm looking mainly for something white and blue, something to kind of complement what I've got in mind. So, yeah, like something like this. Maybe if I get rid of the green part, all this ruffles is going to make a really beautiful collar thing. So I think this could definitely work. My name is Jolanda Bartram. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I've been here for 13 years, and I came with my parents when I was 19, so they decided for a change of lifestyle, and I decided to just tag along and see what it's like, yeah. Whilst I was studying, doing my fashion, my mum and I, we opened up our company, Body Effects. Our main thing that we started off with was very much face and body art, especially in New Zealand 10 or 13 years ago, there was very little of it. So we really decided to go and teach New Zealanders how to face paint and how to, you know, wow them with our body art. Some of my memories from my early childhood, my favourite things of the Netherlands would have to be the Efteling, which is this theme park that is nothing like Disneyland or anything else. My parents had like this pass to go there anytime we wanted for like a couple of years, and so this is where we spend a lot of time. It's based initially very much on fairy tales. It's all designed by Anton Pieck, who is this amazing illustrator from the turn of the century. So today I've got a beautiful model coming in, and I'm going to transform her into this kind of Dutch tulip design, very much in the style of Anton Pieck, using his influences of drawing into what I can create in my makeup and body art. So trying to do something fantastical around there. I'm just going to work with a limited colour palette, probably just with whites and blues today. There's just different areas of body art. Like everybody would have seen the painted clothes. Then there's the canvas artists that create body art on a person. It's just purely fine art, body painting. And then, yeah, and then there's the crossover from like film theatre, makeups into body art. So there's just different ways of doing it. A good painter friend always compared it with sand castles that you build on a beach. Yeah, like you create a sand castle just for the sheer joy of creating something there and then on the spot, and yeah, nature takes its course and it's gone at a certain time. So yeah, it's nice because, you know, next time when Stacey comes around, she's all clean again and I can paint something else on it, which is good. Sometimes it's kind of weird though, like I've done certain corporate gigs and I'm painting for like 3-4 hours on this format, and they do their little performance of 4 or 5 minutes and that's it. Yeah, and then it's kind of like, oh, you know, I've done all this work for that, you know, but hey, that's kind of how it goes. I just always make sure that I make really good photos of my work, because that's the only thing that you have left in the end of it. So photography and body art comes very close together, so it's very important. Yep, that's the one. The picture itself, it just has a real beautiful, serene feel to it. It shows the makeup really lovely and textures of the fabric or the skirt from First Scene is in there. It's got a bit of lace, bit of heritage. It's got it all what I was looking for, so let's go.
In the 1950s and 60s, most people didn't think these old Edwardian houses were as desirable as the tidy new suburbs further out, and rents were low. So inner city suburbs like Ponsonby and Kingsland became home to the first generation of Pacific Island children born here in Aotearoa to immigrant parents.
Here's your smoothie.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh,
That's
no
great.
worries. Enjoy.
Thank you. The inexorable gentrification of these suburbs has meant that many of those original Pacifican families have been priced out of the homes they used to rent, or they've cashed up and moved further out. But there are some second-generation Kingslanders who still call this neighbourhood home, and they've retained their family traditions of Pacifican hospitality.
I'm Lisa Tauma and I am Samoan Pālangi. I live in my little falling down little cottage with my partner Mario and my 4-year-old son Mali. So my parents lived in this big 8-bedroom house down the road, and it was just spilling out the doors and windows with children and aunties and cousins. These are some of my best memories of growing up in Kingsland. This is my Papa Bear, Daddy Peter, and my Mummy Jan. They're like Mummy and Daddy to the whole world. And we pretty much had the whole world living in our house. And every Sunday we'd have this massive big Sunday kongai, big Sunday feast, and our family band would play. Yeah, it was so cool. So my huge, massive family lived in Kingsland for about 18 years, and now they've moved out south. I feel really disconnected from that because I live in Kingsland now, and I'm one of the few kind of third generation of Pollies that have bought in the inner city. The awesome thing about our position in Kingsland is that we're really close to our Samoan neighbours that live across the road. Last night, our neighbours fed us, so we kind of have these progressive dinners. And my sister and her kids are coming over because they're bringing my son home, so a bit of family and a bit of the neighbourhood coming across. So I'm making a chop suey, which is like a really staple Samoan food. Every good Samoan girl should know how to make a good chop suey. I like the metaphor of Samoan chop suey because it's a dish that was introduced to Samoa by the Chinese indentured labourers who came to Samoa. And Samoans have really made it their own, because I think the classic Chinese chop suey's got heaps of vegetables in it, but the Samoan one's just got meat and vermicelli and garlic. Well, vermicelli, you've got to treat it quite carefully because otherwise it can go really soggy. And I spent years in my auntie's kitchen with her going bala, bala, which means you've ruined it. If you overcook it, it's just gluggy, goes all gluggy. You can't have a chop suey without having raw fish with it, because that's the two things that really go together. It's the salty and the creamy. So I'm gonna make a oka, a Samoan oka. And it's amazing in Samoa when you can eat fresh tuna with the really fresh coconut cream from the coconut, because it's just so much thicker and creamier and tastier. Fresh tuna and fresh coconut cream is just like food of the gods. I'm a product of jungle fever because my dad was a Samoan exchange student in Dunedin in the 60s, and my mum was from Invercargill. My mum liked brown boys, and my mum fell in love with my dad, who was in a dance hall band. So my parents met there and then immediately moved to Samoa when he graduated. And we lived in Samoa in one of the villages sort of at the back of the islands. And in Samoa, it's kind of known as we call it the Goa Backs, which is like the backwaters of the islands. We were the first Afakasi kids, the first fair-skinned Samoans in the village, and my mum was the first Pālangi that had ever lived in those sorts of villages in Samoa. We had incredible experiences there, like learning how to stone fish. I mean, I remember freaky things like watching my cousins kill a pig with a stick and learning how to, like every night, husking the coconuts. And a lot of my appreciation of real island food came from that time too.
Do you want okra too?
Yummy.
I don't want to.
Chops.
You don't want chop suey? Anna, do you want chop suey?
Taro,
You want rice, honey?
you want the curry?
I just consider myself amazingly lucky to have been brought up in Samoa and then come to live in an awesome multicultural suburb like Kingsland was and still is to an extent. You know, I mean, those are cool, unique experiences, and I love being able to live comfortably in Samoa and live comfortably in Kingsland as well. It's really cool.
When I was a Member of Parliament, I used to skate to work. There's this great carve down Molesworth Street. I suppose it's one of the things that set me apart from the other Members of Parliament. When I was growing up, though, I had a very real sense of being different, occupying a kind of marginal zone. Not quite white, not quite dark, not quite Pākehā, certainly not Anglo, not Māori. And I guess the theme of my life has been around developing a sense of belonging, coming to grips with my mixed-race heritage, developing a sense of connection. There's a young woman here in Kingsland who works at a local radio station who's found a way of developing a connection between her childhood in India and her life in her new home through her treasured musical collection.
Good morning, listeners. आप सुन रहे हैं Radio Tarana 1386 AM, and today I'm going to play a special song from you. ये गाना वैसे तो आपने प्रोग्राम में सुना होगा. My name is Neha Bhatia, and I'm originally from Delhi, India. Honestly speaking, I wasn't happy when my parents first told me that we are moving to New Zealand. Not that I didn't like New Zealand, but it's just that I did not want to leave India because that was the time when I was, in high school. I was having the best time of my life. I had my friends. Everything was just so perfect, and I was like, what's the need to go anywhere? सही बात है. अभी जब सोनम कपूर ये बातें कर रही थी और ये कह रही थी कि श्रीदेवी जी से उन्होंने अपना खुद का. I've been in New Zealand now for 11 years. The radio station that I work for is called Radio Tarana. When I came from India, of course, I brought along with me all the memories of India. But along with that, I got this little box with me, which I kind of call my treasure box, which has about 100 or 150 audio cassettes. Some of these cassettes are from the time when I was like 9 or 10. And also when I used to buy them, that time they were like some 40 rupees in Indian currency or 35 rupees, which was a lot. And my dad used to still buy them for me because he knew that I'm a musical person, I enjoy my music. So I still attach that value to those cassettes. I don't feel like throwing them away. It's not that I quite listen to them a lot these days because a lot of this music is available online these days. But once in a while, I do, open the box, clean all my tapes, sometimes just occasionally listen to a couple of tracks and then put them back very safely. It's got all sort of music, a lot of Bollywood movies, which released in that time of 90s. It's got a lot of pop albums. There's this one cassette here which says Super Duper Hits of 1997. So this was probably when I was about 12, and there's this one track which I absolutely love in this cassette, which I remember listening to over and over again. It's a very cute love song between two friends. they're not able to understand whether they're in love or whether it's their friendship. And yeah, I remember the song from my school days, and I think I'm going to play this for my listeners this morning. Let's see how they like this song. I've absolutely loved this song, और आज मैं इसके original source से, which is like an audio cassette. So here you go. हमें तेरे भी यकीन है वो हमसे प्यार करती है न वो इनकार. Oh my God, listening to this song just makes me feel like I'm a teenager again, and it just makes me blush and remember my first crush, and it also makes me laugh at some of the silly things we usually do when we are kids. Like at that time the biggest problem used to be like, oh my God, he didn't talk to me today, or she didn't talk to me today, or what are they thinking about me, or how do I patch up with my friend. That was the world for me at that time, and this song just brings back those emotions in me. When I listen to the music, which is stored in my little treasure box, it really does connect me back, not just to my childhood, but also to India. And it's very special because it's not like I'm missing India and my childhood and I'm sad about it, but it just sort of makes me happy and cherish those moments when I was there and I had such a beautiful time over there. I visit India once every 2 years, and it's amazing when I get there. But I can only be there for about a month because the traffic and the chaos actually hits me. I'm not used to it anymore. But as soon as I get back, as soon as the plane lands here, it doesn't just feel beautiful, it feels like, yes, I am home now. This is home. So take care, listeners, and keep smiling, and of course, stay tuned to your Indian radio, Radio Tarana. मैं आपसे कल सुबह फिर मिलूंगी. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I'm proud of my mixed cultural heritage. I think of it kind of like hybrid vigour. When I was growing up, I knew much more about my Hungarian side. I lived there, I could speak the language, I knew my extended family. Although it was hard to find much information about the '56 uprising, I knew less about my African side, at least until I went there after I finished school. In Africa, I found a profound sense of belonging, such as I'd never found anywhere else. And Africa, for me, is my spiritual homeland. But I have this emotional connection to many different parts of the world, including here in Aotearoa. And it's about finding a sense of authentic belonging in the midst of that. I think that's true for many migrants. And so it's really good to see that some of us have found that right here in Kingsland.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.